Yo, what is going on, guys? It's your boy Redux What Ifs, and today I got a part 2 of season 1 of I did say it was going to be part 2 because I was going to go and try to combine the parts when I did it the first time when I made the hour premiere. But yeah, this is going to be what if Superman was in Invincible part 2, season 2. Without any further ado, I'm finna let this intro play and we finna get into the what if. Now, if you remember where we left off at, oh my, there's so much to talk about. So, if you remember where we left off at, Superman is not on Earth because he's looking for a flower to give Eve when he sees her again. So he's not on Earth at the moment. He's returning right now. Mark took Oliver back from Thraxia after his mom, pleaded with them. Omni-Man and Mark got the dog shit beat out of. And then General Krieg, I think, but that's his name. Yeah, he told him to prepare Earth for an invasion, all that other stuff, right? The Sequid invasion happened. They stopped it with the help of Supergirl, and Supergirl is able to save Shrinking Ray, and so like it was like like bad injuries, but nothing critical, or nobody dies. She also ends up saving Rexplode as she basically comes in and damn near splatters the lizard league leader. My bad, I was about to say something weird, something like that, but the lizard league lizard leader, right? And so with that being said, we are here now, which we are going to start this what if off with we're gonna start this what if off with Levi Angstorm, right? And he's basically going through the motions as he is hiding himself away from the public, with the Mauler twins basically explaining what happened and how he became in that state, and he wants to blame Mark for what he's done. But even the Mauler twins was like, no, Mark had nothing to do with this. Like, you did this to yourself. After you took the helmet off, all the combined versions smashed into him, and his memories are fragmented, and it's probably the different universes of Mark's that probably done that to him, but he's confused and think that Mark has did this to him completely. So he is really hell-bent on destroying Mark. And so after that monologue, he says that he's going to make Mark pay for what he did, as he starts using the fragmented memories and the dimensions that he could access to do research on Mark and how to actually beat Mark, right? So while that's going on, we flash back to the other part of the city where Mark wants to make up with Amber. So she goes to Mark goes to talk to Amber about everything, and that he really wants to make this work. So he was able to get 2 days off so he could spend more time with her and not let his hero duties get in the way. And so Mark has his Amber forgives him, as Mark is really happy that he's getting another chance. You fuck up so many times and you just really want this to work. So he's happy that he gets another chance, which which he tells her that he's gonna take her out nice somewhere. So she grabs onto him, and she hangs on, and Mark slowly lifts off the ground, and they fly around the city with his flight sequence with, bro. I know it's like drag race weekend, but damn, man, let me do what I gotta do. Anyway, sorry you heard all that, but Anyway, they fly around the city and their whole flying sequence begins, and we're gonna cut to Amber, right? Not Amber, but to Eve, right? As she is basically, she's going through the motions. She's helping the Guardians, and that's when they were fighting. Let's say they were fighting some type of what is it? We're gonna say they were fighting what's his face? Not Godzilla. Fuck. Godzilla's worst enemy. I knew it off the top of my head, man. Anyway, we're just gonna say he was fighting some Mecha Godzilla ripoff, right? And Eve wasn't, she's still trying to find her place while trying to, she was still beating up over the whole thing, how she put innocent lives at danger, and that's when she was trying to protect the team, which Immortal Man's doing all he can. And he's doing what he can, but even he is struggling, because we all know Immortal Man can't beat the allegations, man. For some odd reasons, he just can't beat the allegations. But he's doing his best, and then that's when Clark gets into orbit. He gets into orbit of Earth, and he's flying back down, and then that's when he hears Samantha call out to Clark as she says, Clark, as she's holding off the shield so Monster Girl doesn't get stepped on and stuff. And then that's when it shoots like a energy ray beam at the shield, which it starts to crack. And then that's when Clark hears what's going on, right? He hears what's going on, so he shoots down to where he heard his voice, right? And that's when he's kind of upset, so he has those red eyes, right? When Superman get angry, that's when them red eyes come. So he shoots down, right? And as the shield was about to crack and break open, that's when everything slows down, with Clark able to move Monster Girl out the way, and then he takes the brunt of the attack with the explosion, pushing Eve forward. And this picture right here, that's what happens. That's what signifies this relationship right now. And like I said, shout out to KVS_1112, bro. You are a GOAT for letting me use this, bro. I really appreciate for all the art that you said I could use related to Superman and Invincible and the crossover, man. Credits to you. I will put your socials in the description after I finish this video. But like I said, shout out to you, bro. You're a GOAT. And there's many more to come. So I appreciate you for all your hard work. Anyway, as I was saying, that's what happens. And, they're both taken aback by what just happened, with Clark stumbling over his words. I was like, I didn't. And then that's when Eve, put her finger to his lips, saying, we could talk about what just happened later, but right now we have to defeat this robot. And then that's when Clark said, yeah, right. He was like, but before we do that, here, take this. He said, it was a wild flower that, was actually growing on the Kuiper belt near, Jupiter or wherever he was at, right? And, there was actually life on this, distant planet that, they haven't discovered. And, he was doing research while he was discovering it, and he wanted to go take a peek at himself. And he was like, I'm rambling on about this. We could talk about this later. And then that's when Superman turned towards the robot. And then that's when the robot shoots another energy beam. And then that's when Superman, has his arms forward, right? He has his arms out, and then he palms outwards. And then that's when he absorbs it, right? He's absorbing it. It's like he's taking the impact, and then he refracts the beam with his hands up towards the sky. And then that's when as the beam was in towards the sky, he was like, hot. And he was like, wait, why? Because it was actually kind of hot. And he was like, and then he used his freeze breath to cool his hands down. And then that's when he looked at it, and then he blitzed forward, and then punched it, right? He punched it, right? I'm gonna give you all a little image of how it looks when he punched it, right? He punched it, and then it kind of flew back, and then that's when he grabbed this tail and then, you know, swung it around, classic Superman style, swinging it around, and then threw it up in the air. And then that's when we're gonna get like animated, where, you know, the impact frames coming, right? And then he get like in a good punching position, and then he punched it. He basically punched it through the throat, right? He punched it through the throat, you know, as he comes, like he goes inside, you know, does what he does, and then grabs the core, and then punches the core out, as you can see Superman holding the core. And then that's when the core explodes on him, but nothing happens because he's damn near, you know, invincible. Title card. I'm playing. But anyway, but yeah, after he does that, the core explodes, and then he sees the rest of the fractured parts coming towards Earth. So he grabs the rest of the robot, you know, and then, you know, cleans up the city using his super speed, you know, speed blitzing everywhere, just, you know, left, right, you know, cleaning up, saving any other civilians. And then that's when they said that, you know, you're back, you returned. And he was like, I was never leaving in the first place. I just had to make a quick stop in space real quick, but I would never leave you guys. You know, he said, I would never leave you guys without, you know, protection. Because, you know, he was saying that, you know, the Guardians of the Globe were filling in his place. And, you know, they were doing their best, but, you know, they kind of was getting belt to ass, not gonna lie. But, you know, after that settled, the news covers everything. The GDA takes the remaining fractured parts of the robot away, of the wannabe Mecha Godzilla, right? And so after that, him and Eve, you know, fly away, you know, into the you know, let's say the atmosphere, not like all the way up there, but away from prying eyes, as they, you know, break through the clouds. And then they both begin to talk about everything and what happened. And, you know, Clark calms her down, as, you know, he's saying that, you know, he said, you have so much potential, but you hold yourself back because you're afraid of what people think. He was like, don't care about what people think. As long as you know you're doing good, you have nothing to worry about. He was like, I'm faced with that every day. And he was like, especially with Immortal Man not liking me due to, you know, resembling Omni-Man somewhat of a hero that me and Mark are. Mark is faced with that, and I'm faced with that. And you're not alone. And he said, you're never alone. He was like, I was a way to get you that flower. He was like, I was studying your powers, and, you know, it's a flower that never dies, really. It always, you know, gets it's always like reborn, basically. It's called, we're gonna say it's called X121, but he sees it as a phoenix flower, where it shrivel up, and then as the old petals, you know, die off and begin to, like, you know, fall, new petals blossom in its place, leaving the old petals to crumble. And they use the old petals to nurture itself. So it's basically like an immortal flower, right? And so that's when Eve thinks that Clark is so sweet and thoughtful. And he was like, yeah, you know, my dad taught me how to just, you know, be a man the best way I can. And that's when she was like, you think I can meet your father? And then that's when Clark kind of got quiet, but he was like, yeah, you can. And so, you know, this is going to be like a more Clark focused episode, if y'all haven't realized that. So, you know, Clark, oh my god, bro, why the fuck do I need to move, bro? Like, it's shit like that dang, it made somebody car alarm go off. That is loud as shit. It was moving though, but god damn, bro, this is why I hate being in this area when it's fucking race weekend, bro. Oh my god, bro, fuck. Anyway, as I was saying before, that horribly loud exhaust ruined what I was about to say. They fly towards They fly towards the we're gonna say the other farm, and there was a graveyard where Jonathan was buried. As he comes down in his suit, nobody's there. The sun is setting, and then that's when he was like, "Hey, Pa, I was like, I have somebody that wants to meet you," and he said, what is it? He was like, this is Samantha Eve. She's a hero that I saved all that long ago. If you remember when I couldn't fly at the time, and she was younger, fighting her siblings that she didn't know she was fighting, and I helped out. And you were against it, but you still didn't stop me from being somebody that you knew I was going to be eventually. And I just wanted to take the time for her to meet you. He was like, I know, although she hasn't met Ma yet, and you probably she probably won't. Motorcycles too, man. Motorcycles too. If a semi truck, if I see a truck that has a muffler, a straight pipe that just blasts through here, I might stop this what if, man. Honestly. Bro, I'm getting so agitated right now, man. I'm getting so agitated. I'm not cutting this out, man. Honestly, I'm not cutting this out. I'm on my break right now. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm not kidding. I'm not gonna stop this what if, but I'm just getting agitated for real though. But as I was saying, he said that, he was like, I think this is the one. He was like, I know you and Ma had, are, kind of against the just rushing in things without testing the waters, but I'm going to test the waters and see where it leads. Good times and bad times, I want her to be by my side. And we built a good friendship, and I believe that this is something that can last. And he was like, but I want her to, introduce herself, and that's when she does her introductions and talks to Pa Kent. And that's when he says that since his he was like, mom should be home since he's like, his mom should be home since she gets released, since she got released from the hospital, a week prior to when he returned. So she's already at the farm. And so that's when they both, say their goodbyes to Pa Kent, and that's when she takes off. That's when they both take off and fly towards the farm, with Martha basically cleaning up around the house, cooking dinner, cooking Clark's and Jonathan's favorite pie, because Martha knew that Clark was gonna show up today, and her motherly instincts couldn't be more accurate, because she heard a knock and she said, come in. And then that's when Clark super speed towards his mom, saying that you're better, you came from the hospital, is everything okay? And then that's when Clark said, that's when Martha said that she's doing better. It's nothing that she can't handle, because all of the good times and bad times she been with John, she picked up a thing from him or two, and one of those things is to fight it out regardless how the odds be, and never give up. And she held her ring as she is reminded of him, as she chooses not to remarry, because she's standing 10 toes with John in the physical and in the real world, right? And so in the physical and the spiritual, my bad. And so after that, he introduces Samantha and Eve, and as Eve, touches, Martha's hands, she could see her whole body output as she could see her whole body, and then the cancer and where the cancer is at, and how it's at stage 4, but the treatments are slowly just progressing the inevitable. And that's when Sam says that she says it out loud by accident, because her powers triggered her, and she was like, Miss Kent, you have stage 4? And she was like, Yes, I do. And then that's when Clark was like, "Do I have permission to?" And he was like, "What do you mean?" And then that's when she touched her, and then she damn near did a Doctor Strange shit, right? She Doctor Strange her ass. Not like that, but like she surgically removed, pinpoint accurately removed the tumor that was spreading, including all the blood cells that were contaminated. And she showed her what it was and everything that she collected. She no longer has cancer now. So these are one of these miracles that Clark been praying for times like this, man. He been praying for times like this, and he got it. So after that, Clark broke down in tears as she basically snapped, and the cancer is vanished, right? The cancer's gone. And he hugged Eve, and then her mom hugged Clark, and they were all in a group hug as they said thank you. And you know she was never felt with this such emotion, so she started crying too, because her household and her upbringing wasn't the best. So when she sees Martha is treating her like her own, like a daughter-in-law, because she's happy for Clark, because Clark wasn't able to have that stable love life without keeping secrets and pushing everybody away unknowingly, because he was afraid that nobody would accept him. But after this, oh yeah, he's all going for it. And so with that being said, after they have a group hug, the camera pans outside, zooming out towards the barn, and then we flash back to Mark where they're on a date and eating dinner. And that's when Anissa comes, right? Anissa comes holding Amber by the throat, saying that if Mark doesn't come with her, he's gonna kill her, right? And Mark didn't want that, so he says let her go. And then that's when Mark Anissa says, "You are in no position to make demands towards me. If you want her unharmed, you are going to follow me, and we are going to talk." And then that's when Mark does so, right? That's when Mark does so. And instead of him being in his suit, he's in his attire, right? He sneaks off somewhere and then flies up, and then that's when Anissa sees him, and then they both fly up. And that's when Anissa says that that she's coming here on the orders of General Krieg. I believe that's his name. Correct me if I'm wrong. She's coming here on the orders of General Krieg, and she wants him to take over this planet. How the humans would be so much better under the Viltrum rule. How they could stop global warming, climate change, world hunger, and just water break. My bad. Just many other things that they were listing that they could stop if Mark was to take over the world, which Cecile was in Mark's ear saying that to do it and see where it goes, but Mark refused. And then that's when Cecile said that there's a sea monster terrorizing a cruise ship about a half the world away. And that's when Anissa chilled back to see what Mark was gonna be on, since she was able to hear what they were saying too. And then that's when Mark said, "Sorry to cut this short, but I have to go save some people." And then that's when Anissa said, "I'll accompany you." And they both fly off to save the cruise ship. Pretty much everything goes to canon with Mark trying his best, but he's struggling as he's basically holding himself back, right? He's holding himself back, which he's kind of having trouble with. But Anissa basically gets tired of the games that Mark is doing with this beast, right? So she basically one-shots it, and she saved a lot of innocent lives that could have been lost to that sea monster. And then that's when Anissa gives him one final option, and they were going back and forth about it for about a good 3 to 4 minutes. And then that's when Anissa grew tired of Mark. She felt like Mark was stalling, right? So that's when she punched Mark through the cruise ship as he flew up and tore it down. And then that's when Anissa was on the side. And then that's when That's when she speed blitz, right? Because she's one of the fastest Viltrumites, I believe so. And then that's when she speed blitz, right? And then that's when she gives Mark the meanest uppercut, right? And a whole sonic boom, went through the air, right? Split the clouds, and they begin fighting, which is more of a belt to ass for Mark, a beat down, as Mark was getting some hits in, but she was just laughing that shit off, and she was like more disappointed than more disappointed than excited about fighting Omni-Man's son, because she thought it would be a lot better than that. And then they begin fighting, and then that's when as Anissa throws Mark down towards the ground, that's when Supergirl hears what's going on, right? She's in her what suit should I give her? I'm gonna put a picture up, and I'm gonna randomize it, but it's gonna be a cool, actually no, I'm gonna make her suit the My Adventures with Superman suit, where she had the Brainiac suit on, but it was the House of L. That suit, it's gonna be black, but we're gonna invert the colors, so it's gonna be red, but the cape's gonna be black. I'm gonna put a picture up right here, and y'all should be able to see the picture, so I guess y'all an idea what it is. So yeah, she shows up, right? Because she hears what's going on, and she thinks that it's Clark, right? She thinks that's his Clark getting that needs help. So she helps she helps Mark. She catches Mark, and she says, "Are you okay? Are you hurt?" And then that's when Mark was like, "Damn, who is this?" In his head, because he was like, who is this? Like, who is this? And that's when Anissa flies towards him, towards Mark to finish, but she sees the a girl floating next to Mark, and then that's when Anissa says, "So you brought backup to try to fight me?" And then that's when Kara said, "I'm nobody's backup, but if you are hurting somebody..." Oh my god, bro, not gonna lie, I'm not even mad at that. That was a smooth ass motorcycle, bro. That was a smooth ass bike, bro. I'm not even mad at that. But anyway, as I was saying, so basically, Kara was standing on 10 saying that, she isn't anybody's backup, but if she's hurting the heroes of this world, she has no choice but to fight the evil that is hurting these heroes. And she already could tell that Mark was a hero. She already knew that Mark wasn't a Kryptonian, but since her knowledge is more vast, since she was around longer, she knows what a Viltrumite is, and based on what Anissa was wearing, she could tell that she was gonna fight a Viltrumite. And then that's when Kara said, "A Viltrumite, you should know better than to challenge a Kryptonian." And then that's when Anissa was like, a Kryptonian? He was like, "You guys are extinct." He was like, and that's when she says, he was like, that's when Kara said that we aren't extinct. We just haven't been around too long, and we let the Viltrum Empire get too comfortable. And then that's when Anissa says, "You don't realize how stronger we have gotten." And so they go both. Honestly, bro, what I'm about to entail you with this fight scene, Kara puts belt to ass on Anissa. Okay? Kara puts belt to ass on Anissa. And the only reason why Kara was putting belt to ass on Anissa is because her powers. Experience wise, yeah, they were both. You know what? Let me just go over the fight scene. So that's when Anissa speed blitz, right? She thought she was gonna be able to speed blitz, Kara the same way she speed blitz Mark, but buddy, no. She was not going for that. She did that Clark shit. That Clark shit when Clark locks in and he gets all these buffs out of nowhere. That's exactly what happened. She sidestepped, right? And then she brings her hand up into an elbow, and then just drops that elbow on her, right? And then Anissa flies into the water, and then that's when Kara said, "Stay here and make sure the innocents are okay." And then that's when she flies into the water, right? And so they're underwater, battling, right? And so they begin to trade blows as they clash fists, making shockwaves in the water, with the water creating like an air pocket, and then bursting with the water. and stuff. Like, bro, like, this shit is getting crazy, bro. So they're fighting underwater. Kara pushes Anissa into a coral reef, and then that's when Kara gets her fist and then punches her face in it, cracking the coral reef that spanned for miles, bro, cracking it. And then that's when Anissa pushes her off, and then that's when they both go deeper into the water, right? And then that's when Anissa put her into like a jujitsu lock, right? And then that's when she they're both holding their breath. And as you know, Kryptonians can hold their breath for a very long time, so can Viltrumites, right? But yeah, so they both were coming, right? Like, they're both fighting. She has her Anissa has Kara in a lock, and she, swings her around into the deep end. And then that's when Kara comes bolting up at Anissa as she's just punching her relentlessly as Anissa's starting to draw blood. And then that's when Kara gives her a Dragon Ball Z gut check, which makes Anissa cough out blood. And then that's when she grabs Anissa by her basically by her shirt, right? By her suit shirt, right? And then she swings her around towards the ground. And then that's when Kara meets her before she could, catch herself from landing, and then gives a overhand, like a axe, she clasps her hands together and brings that shit down on her, making a crater next to Mark. And then that's when Mark was gonna try to get himself, like some payback attacks. But that's when Anissa gives him the meanest 3-piece Mark has ever received in his life that quickly. And then that's when Kara comes down and then gets in front of Mark as she stops Anissa's fist from hitting Mark again. And then she kicks Anissa in the stomach, which she catches herself. As that's when what is it? After that, that's when that's when Anissa says, "Mark, take over this world, or we will come back and slaughter this planet." And then that's when she said, that's when Kara says, "You aren't doing any slaughtering. If you don't go, I'll end you permanently." And then that's when Anissa scoffs, and then she flies away as Mark, gets on one knee saying that took a lot out of him, which it kind of did. After getting beaten like that, man, yeah, it would take a lot out of me too. But me personally, that wouldn't happen to me. Anyway, so after, Mark takes a breath, right? Kara asked if he was okay. And, Mark said that, yeah, he'll heal. It just takes a little bit of time. And then that's when Kara said, "Well, while I'm still here, have you seen anybody wearing this symbol on my chest?" And then that's when Mark was like looking at her chest. All right, he was like, "Oh, his name's Clark." He was like, she said, "Clark? He has an Earth name?" He was like, that's when Mark was like, yeah, he does. Yeah, his name's Clark. He was like, "No. On my world, his name is Kal-El, but on this one, you know him as Clark. Can you take me to him?" And he was like, I could take you to him. And then, he bro, like, this man is stumbling over her beauty, bro. Like, he fumbling, bro. Like, in a good way though, not like, he fumbling the bad, right? He fumbling in a good way. And then that's when Mark, leads. Anyway, that's when Mark leads the way, and they both, she follows him as Mark shows her the Guardians of the Globe headquarters. That's when Immortal Man gets ready to pop off at Mark. And then that's when Immortal Man was like, "Who is this? Who did you bring here now? Is this one of your other father's conspirators?" And then that's when Kara's like, "I am no conspirator. Now please stop bad mouthing me unless you don't have the fight to back it up." And then that's when Immortal Male was thinking about, trying to hit her, but then that's when she gave her that glare and he felt that pressure. He was like, never mind. And then, he digressed as that was the same time. At that same time, Immortal Man was stepping down as the leader, because he had other ambitions to go find Kate and stuff, because he believed that Kate really wasn't dead, obviously, which she's not, but we'll get into that later. Anyway, so after that, Mark told Kara that he should be here in a few minutes, so just wait here. He has to go take care of something, and because he forgot about Amber again. So Mark flies off faster than he ever flew, in his opinion. And him and Amber talk about it, and then that's when they officially break up, because Amber can't take the mental strain anymore. She can't take the the constant disappearing, and then after her life was in danger, that was just like the final straw. And then that's when Kara didn't listen. She followed Mark, and she was on the roof, not on the roof, but like kind of distant, where she was listening to everything. And then after that, Mark cried. He went through what he had to go through, and then that's when Mark went on a building to go think about life, and instead of him calling to Eve, Kara came down and asked what was wrong, and that's when Mark was like, he just had a breakup. That's what happens when two people love each other, but sometimes things just doesn't work out, so they have to separate to move on and be better, because sometimes we have to love a person so much that it's best for them to let go. So that's when he decided that it was time to just focus on being a superhero full time, so he doesn't have to drag anybody else down. And then that's when Kara says that she admires that that he fights with compassion and love. She was like, there's not a lot of that when she explored, when back at her home planet. There wasn't a lot of guys that were about that. They were just war hungry and ready to sacrifice anything for their gains by any means necessary. And she says that she's the first one that she's seen that is really genuine about what he does. And that's when Kara gives him a really good, nice hug, which Mark was kind of like turning red in the face a little bit. He was like, what was that for? He was like, I read all about your Earth's customs before I came here. This is what you call a hug, right? And then she said, am I doing something inappropriate? Is this what you call mating? And then that's when Mark was like, no, hugs are okay. This isn't mating. I think, thank you. And then that's when Kara let go the hug, and then that's when she said she'll wait here if she hears anything about her cousin, right? And then that's when Mark gets the phone call, right? That's when Mark gets the phone call about what is it? He gets the phone call about fucking Debbie, right? He gets a phone call about Debbie, and he thinks it's his mom, but it's actually Levi Angstorm calling, saying that he has his mom hostage and he better come right now, which Mark does, bro. Like, this man broke the sound barrier on his way. Time now. He's not wasting no time, right? And so that's when as he was doing what he was doing he was doing what he was doing with Mark was doing what he was doing. That's when fucking Clark, right? Clark was flying, patrolling the city, and then that's when he sees a silhouette bearing the same symbol, and he was confused, and it flew away as Clark said, hey, wait up. And then they both, it was like a flying chase when they were flying between this in the city. Kara's trying to lose him, and then that's when she shoots straight up, and then that's when Clark, shot straight up too. But then he was like, all right, enough's enough. So he just blew past her and then stopped her. He was like, wait, who are you? And then that's when Kara was like, Kal-El? And then that's when Clark was like, how do you know that name? And she was like, it's me, your cousin from Krypton. And then he was like, I don't remember a cousin. I thought I was the only one on Krypton. I thought I was the last of my kind from Krypton. I didn't know there was any others. And then she was like, of course there are any others, because Kara thinks that Krypton is still there. She thinks Krypton is still there, and she was on a mission to find baby Kal-El. She thought that was he was a baby till now. Obviously, as he's become a grown full Krypton. Well, he's grown, but he's still like grown into becoming like a full-fledged, overpowered Krypton that Superman really is, man. But yeah, so after that, that's when Kara's like, yes, that's great. Now we could go back to our planet and tell everybody you're alive. And then that's when Superman was like, what? No, you can't do that, Kara. He was like, why are you doubting, Kal? He's like, everybody is waiting for you. And that's when Clark was like, Kara, no, Krypton is gone. And then she was like, you're gonna have to, you're gonna have to like joke around better than that for me to believe it. And then that's when Superman was like, believe it, I can show you. And then that's when they both fly to the Fortress of Solitude. And then that's when she sees it. She was like, so I see you already made yourself home on this earth. He's like, Krypton, huh? It's like, is this like your Fortress of Solitude, I'm assuming? And then that's when Clark was like, I really never had a... You serious right now, bro? Oh my God. This shit is finna be funny, bro. Anyway, as I was saying, Kara said, is this what you call your Fortress of Solitude? And then Clark was like, I never thought of a name for it yet. I just call it the Fortress. And she was like, right, well, there's your name for it, the Fortress of Solitude. And then that's when Superman, Clark was like, Clark walked through, the halls leading her to the like mainframe computer where Jor-El's consciousness is at. And then that's when Jor-El, pops up like in a Man of Steel fashion, as he looks like he's there, but it's just a holographic image, right? He looks like he's there, and he was like, well, how do you Earthlings say it? Good evening, my son. What have you come to the fortress for me for now? What have you come to the fortress to talk to me or ask me about today? And then that's when Clark was like, Father, he's like, Jor-El, basically he said, I thought I was the last Krypton there. And he was like, you were. He was like, so Kara's here, Kara Zor-El. He's like, Kara Zor-El is here. And then that's when Jor-El was like, Kara, she's here? And then that's when she stepped in. She was like, Jor-El, you're here. And then she tried to hug him, but she realized that it was a hologram. And then that's when Kara was like, why are you not here? Why are you using a hollow projection? And he was like, you do not understand what happened. You were there when it happened. And then that's when Kara explained her part, that her father sent her off on a spaceship too to find Kal. And because when she was in the Phantom Zone, right? When she was in the Phantom Zone, she really doesn't remember that the planet died. So when the planet exploded, right? When the planet exploded, it knocked her ship off course, and it like made like an energy surge, which knocked her out and gave her amnesia. Like kind of like not remembering that part, but remembering that she was in a ship to find Cal though. So, after she explains what happened, that's when Jor-El fills in the blanks, saying that Zod turned against the Kryptonian race, working with the Viltrumites, and as it shows a projection of conquest and Thrag, and just conquest and Thrag, right? With Thrag being more of a shadowy, because we didn't know it was actually Thrag and them, but it was Zod, Conquest, and Thrag standing above a dying Krypton. And that's when he said that since his brother, which is his uncle, was his most trusted advisor, he shared the plans about a ship, since they were trying to do intergalactic space travel. They only built a ship for her and for her and Cal, and while they were on the same course, hers left the orbit a little bit too late, out the blast radius, but it's like the shockwave that came after that knocked her off course. And it was the shockwave that also messed up the energy field, the warping like wormhole they had, that got her sent to the Phantom Zone, right? So after that, my bad for y'all dude. But after that took place, we fast forward to everything now, and then that's when Jor-El said it's impossible for somebody to have access to the Phantom Zone. I haven't even given Kal-El access to it yet. And then that's when Cal was like, why? What is the Phantom Zone? He was like, the Phantom Zone harbors the most dangerous intergalactic criminals or monsters that were there. Monsters and criminals that they were so bad, we made like a pocket, basically an infinite pocket dimension to send them in when they were sentenced or it was no other choice. And that's where they got sent to. So Jor-El was confused on how she was able to escape the Phantom Zone. She said that she was just in her ship, and then one day a strange greenish portal opened, and then that's when Superman was like, I have to ask Mark about this, because he mentioned this about me when we were talking while I was in space, about somebody who could control portals and open portals to different dimensions, and energy surge spiked not too long ago. He said, I saw like a green beam open something, and then it closed. I didn't see anything fly out of it. And then he said, well, that must have been it. He said, so basically Jor-El said if Kara's ship came out, he's basically saying that there could be plenty of other threats that came out that basically came out the Phantom Zone, right? And then that's when Jor-El said, son, you must prepare for anything that may have came out, because if this creature, also known as XX, we're gonna say 300M, which is doom, right? Doomsday, right? Which is doomsday. And he showed a picture, and he was like, and then that's when Clark was like, what is this? What kind of monster is this? He was like, it's 300M, also, my bad. He said it's 300M, also known as Doomsday, Doom. And he was like, we created this Kryptonian, basically he's like a Kryptonian warrior. He said we created this warrior that was for the Viltrumites when they tried to use they got their hands on blue kryptonite, and for them to even the battlefield, they made Doomsday to actually, they made a warrior and they called him Doom, right? So in this version, Doomsday actually has a consciousness, right? He actually has a consciousness, right? But this is the backstory, right? So they created him, and he was one of the strongest Kryptonians, and he gotten so strong to the point that they used him because, like, every time he quote unquote dies, he adapts to it and won't be able to die to it again. So he gotten so strong that it started to scare the Kryptonians themselves. So they created, that's why they created the Phantom Zone in the first place, to basically seal him, to basically like seal him off from the universe, this universe, because that's when Jor-El said that he was dangerous, and under the yellow sun that he's in, he's afraid that, you know, it will be either a uphill battle trying to beat him, or, you know, that he might die trying to beat him. And then that's when Superman's eyes get wide as we see floating debris in the we see floating debris in Earth's atmosphere as it begins to crash down, and the radars didn't catch it, so it's deep in the ocean as it's like kind of frozen, right? It's frozen, so but it's slowly unthawing due to Earth's waters being warm, and it was at the bottom of the sea, right? As you know, we zoom in to see what kind of a figure it was, and it was no other than Doomsday, as he slowly begins to move and his eye opens. And then as his eyes open, as we see Doomsday's like encased into like Krypton ice. As we pan closer and closer, his eyes flashes red as he roars, and we fade to black, right? We fade to black. And now we open this scene up with Mark, you know, blasting through the door as he's home, and he sees that Debbie is, holding Oliver as she's like, kind of like, you know, scared because some person just basically teleported in their house, and she's like kind of freaking out about it. So, with that being said, that's when Mark was like, "What have you done to her?" He was like, "Done to her? I haven't even begun to start my revenge." And then that's when they begin to like, you know, battle it out. And then, you know, that's when, you know, Invincible gets sent to dimensions and stuff, trying to tire him out. And then that's when Mark screamed. He was like, "Clark, help! I need you!" And then that's when Superman heard it. And then that's when Clark was like, "Hey, Kara, Jor-El, catch Kara up on everything. I gotta go." And then that's when he blasted off to Mark's residence. And as he bust through the door, that's when Armstrong, I'm gonna just say Levi. I'll be fucking up his last name sometimes. That's when Levi, right? Levi opened another portal. And then that's when he basically pushed Mark out the way of the portal to get Levi. And then that's when Clark flew into the portal. And Clark, bro, where Clark ends up at, bro, he ends up in a different universe where one of the evil Marks have taken over, Mohawk Mark, right? And that's when Mohawk Mark sees Superman. He was like, "Last time you showed up here," he was like, "you." He doesn't even know who a Kryptonian is, because I don't think in that universe there isn't any. He was like, you dare try to, you know, start an uprising?" He said, "You dare try to start an uprising after I took all this time to prepare this planet for the Viltrum Empire?" And then that's when he was like, "Mark, what are you doing? You would never do this." He was like, "Who are you?" He was like, "I am Mark, and I am so doing this because this is what the Viltrum Empire would want it. This is what they would want it. Peace to this planet." And then that's when Superman was like, "You slaughtered millions. You killed innocents. For what?" And then he was like, "Because imagine it." He's like, "Imagine a world without wars, no hunger, everything, everything perfect. He was like, just because it might be good doesn't mean it is good. We don't have the right to judge everybody or play God. We let things naturally happen, and if things get bad, we help. We don't do this. And then he said, but too late. I am doing it. Now serve the Viltrum Empire or face the consequences. And yeah, that's when Superman said, he was like, you're starting to sound like somebody that my father once knew. His name was General Zod. And once he told me that Krypton has his chance, and I'm telling you the same thing about your empire. Viltrum has a planet, and it already has his chance. He said, you may have slaughtered Earth's defenders and may have, caused them to hide. But me, I'm not backing down. And I will fight you, even if I have to go against my word and kill you. He was like, you kill me? I would like to see you try. And then that's when they both, fly towards each other, hands back, ready to punch, and they clash fists. And then I'm going to leave that what if off right here. So we're going to do things a little bit different, right? We're going to do things a little bit different. So Mark is going to get sent to dimensions, which, each time, right? Because he's fighting. And since Clark got sent to one of the Invincible universes, he's already handling one of the Invincibles. So it's like less Invincibles, evil variants that they have to deal with. So while Clark is fighting him, I'm gonna get back to that because I might drop another what if off too, man. I'm feeling it. I'm like in a good mood. So after that, I might drop another video about that, right? And so basically, what is it? So basically, Superman is fighting another evil variant of Invincible in another universe, right? The Mohawk Mark, which is, kind of strong, but still relatively weak to Superman. But I will still give y'all the choreography and the fight that happens, and on this Earth, Adam Eve dies. Mark kills her. So when Superman finds that out, oh yeah, he's gonna go ape shit and probably murder the fuck out of Mohawk Mark. So I'm gonna leave that here. I'm gonna leave that what if off here. Hope y'all enjoyed the story. I try to make it more like a Clark focused episode today. I was looking at the recaps and I was watching it, and I'm still kind of confused. If y'all answer my question I got at the end of the video, did the Invincible War happen before Conquest came or after Conquest came? I'm still relatively new to the Invincible stuff, so please correct me and give me feedback if I'm wrong. And if the Invincible War took place, all I need to know is, when does Mark fight the Reaniman? Because I might have Superman fight the Reaniman, because Cecile might not trust Superman either when he comes back. What else? Or if that's in season 3, or when does Invincible War takes place, before or after Conquest? And which Mark do you want? Which Mark do you want to fight Superman? Because I already got Evil Cape Mark gonna fight Superman, and Omni Mark fighting Superman. So y'all let me know what y'all want with that. The Viltrumite Mark, not Omni Mark. So y'all let me know what y'all want to do with that. Hope y'all enjoyed the what if. This is probably like another hour special. I'm spoiling y'all for real, but I hope y'all enjoy the video. I'm gonna be live tomorrow, so I appreciate y'all for all the love and support. Let's get to 90 subs this weekend, man, and we almost 100. Like, my birthday's like almost 2 weeks away now. So y'all just smash that like button, comment, like, subscribe, pull up to the live when I go live tomorrow. I appreciate y'all for all the love and support. I hope y'all enjoyed this what if, since I put in pictures back, since I don't get copyrighted for it no more. I hope y'all enjoy these quality what ifs I'm about to give y'all, man, and hope that boosts the algorithm and everything. But after this, I will be doing Tatsumi, Virtual Tatsumi, and finishing that, since I think I'm almost finished with that. But yeah, I hope y'all have a good weekend. I'm here to just like chill, make y'all weekend more good. I'm gonna be dropping Invincible what ifs, Sakuna and Young Justice, and Tatsumi Virgil, or Virgil Tatsumi, or Yamato Virgil, not Yamato, Yamato Tatsumi. So I hope y'all are ready for this weekend, because y'all finna get spoiled. Like I said, I appreciate every single one of y'all. Shout out to KVS for letting me use the art for my Invincible What Ifs. And shout out to a subscriber, Kane Kinder, for, low-key fluctuating how the story will go, and correcting some mistakes that I did get wrong, or some things that I could have added. All criticism is welcome. I appreciate you for correcting me on some things I didn't know, so I could keep the story as entertaining as possible. But without any further ado, man, I appreciate every single one of y'all, and this is Redux What Is signing off. And by the way, when I finish season 2, I'm gonna combine the movie for the first season and the second season, and I'm gonna do the same thing for the third season. So I'll just make one huge ass movie, having all the parts combined. It'll probably be like a 5-6 hour-ish video, depending on how I do season 3 and season 2. Because now I'm thinking about it, when I did part 1, I kind of did part 1 and part 2 together, even though I could have split it up, but it's all well. So this is just gonna be part 2. Might as well label this part 3, because you already know part 1 and part 2 is together. So yeah, anyway, that's all I had to say. Pull up to the live stream Saturday. Other than that, this is Redux What Ifs signing off. Make sure y'all check out my other What Ifs, my anime What Ifs, and that's all I really have to say. Y'all have a good weekend, because I'm finna feed y'all finna eat good.